We're back. It's the NBA Nightcap. I'm going to be your host here, Nick. We got Lucas up here trying to swat a fly, and Dave over
So
here
annoying.
without any bird dog. We got another playoff edition of the Nightcap. We were gone for a wedding bachelor party, so we were financially and mentally recovered enough to talk about NBA basketball. I'm not gonna lie, I missed a lot of games because I was asleep by like 9:30, but I caught up.
We're snoring like up a storm.
Oh my god! All right, from number one, I could only snore for a couple hours until his snoring started, and that woke me up. We were around each other too much. I digress, guys. Nightcap. I got myself a nice Italian Peroni beer. Been a while.
Oh.
My grandfather loved them. Saw them in the store, and I said, made some pizza today. I was in there with the dough, making it myself. Yes, this is a fine.
It's an Italiano.
It was the perfect Casa de Pasta pizza.
I'm gonna get that tattooed.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. What are you drinking over there, Fruity?
I got a Margie's Marg special of coconut, mango, grapefruit, and then a mystery fruit that I forgot about, all blended together with some rum and ice, and it is delicious.
Still can't believe it. I can't remember that rum drink that I'm trying to think of. I'm gonna think of it like at 2 a.m. and text you it.
Rum chata.
It's not rum chata. Rum chata doesn't even look like that at all. And since I said in the beginning intro, Dave's out of bird dog, so he's also out of bush lattes, so you can't have any of those. Big bush latte guy.
My God.
Big bush.
A couple bush lattes.
That's what they call bush lights. Bush lattes.
Ever heard of Bush Light called bush lattes?
Yeah, always. The Popo told me about it.
The Popo.
Yeah, it was some state troopers that are out. They're like, we'll take a bush latte, and I was like, we don't have those. And like, all right, Coors latte.
I said I'm not drinking.
I'm drinking a Coors latte then. And I was like, okay. 4 of them later.
Roll off the tongue.
Bush latte. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go into the NBA. Everyone who is listening, if you want to drink, go grab yourself a beverage because we're getting right into this. The most important series to all of us here. Clippers versus Jazz. That's what I thought. I'm going to let you guys take it away because I forgot they are doing fireworks outside of my room. New York hit 70% vaccinations, one-shot vaccinations. So 10 cities get fireworks. We're one of 10. So I'm going to let you guys roll. I'm going to let you roll into it while I shut my window.
Sounds good. So tied 2-2. Right? Still no Conley. Mitchell's on one leg. He's still balling out to Mitchell's standards. I think
like 37 points, but off 26 shots.
It's weird because like Mitchell, shooting like 9 for 26 is not good, but then I think like 3 or 4 of those 9 shots were threes made. And then he hit like 7 or 8 free throws. So like in the end, it turned out to be like an average shooting night because those other shots were more efficient than others. But like I still don't think like 9 for 26 you can justify away as being like an okay, shooting.
Yeah,
night.
13 for 15 from the free throw line.
There it is. So like those more efficient shots make up for the bad twos that he took. I don't know. I think this next game might be weird because Kawhi is not listed on the injury report, which I was a little surprised about since he didn't play the last 4 minutes of the game.
They're all still up by like 20 something though.
They cut it to 10 with 2 minutes to go. So it was still there.
A lot of faith in playoff
the Jazz
P.
were not in that game, but it was like they got blown out in the first and couldn't really ever recover too much to single digits anyway.
The only thing that I have to say about this series is that you guys still don't respect Kawhi enough, and it very much upsets me.
I think Kawhi gets.
I have a counter to that.
Okay, I'll let you go because
I'm just gonna say, why would you gas up the Clippers when they can't, when the Clippers are tied in a series, right? They lost 2 games, and the Jazz still didn't have Mike Conley. So like I know the Clippers didn't have Ibaka, but like the 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 Jazz aren't even playing without a point guard, right? Their backup, they just throw Clarkson in there and Ingles, and that's their ball handlers. Like they're missing probably the best ball handler on the team in Conley, and I don't feel confident about the Clippers right now. Like sure they got those 2 games back, but like I feel like if they were the dominant favorite, this should be at least 3-1, right? Like right now, it should be 3-1.
The thing that like I'm not even talking about the Clippers team. I'm just talking about Kawhi Leonard.
But he's dominant in their wins. Yeah, he's killing it. He's hitting
Yeah.
mid rangers. They're letting Kawhi get his whatever he wants, because you watch him and he's getting to the mid range. It's not like they're like really shutting him down there, but they're just trying to let the rest of the team not beat them. Like if Kawhi gets 40, but Paul George gets like 13, they win. They're gonna win by 25 as long as the other fringe guys don't go off. You're just like, all right, Kawhi, go for it. It's what the Mavs did, and it worked for probably half the series until Luka's shoulder was just injured.
I mean, I get that. I think this is a more overall thing where it's like I know there's injuries, but there's injuries every single year, and it feels like this year it's like, oh my God, every single player is hurt. We're gonna only talk about the injuries. I feel like it's like a super strong narrative of AD, of Kyrie, Harden, of Conley, of like there's Luca, like okay, these players got hurt and stuff like that,
Chris
but that
Paul.
happens every single year.
Yeah, but there's definitely more of a star-studded injury list this year than most years.
Well, okay, but so I just named AD. AD has a super long injury history,
Yeah, but
and it looks
he
like
was
broke
he
every single thing in his body. Harden and Kyrie both played like half the season this year.
So,
Like I
so I
don't
think I'm
like,
following you, right? Are you saying it should be a wash? Like there's
yeah.
so many injuries all around. Like, so I think I see where you're coming from now, right? So I guess thinking about every single team except for the Hawks, they have injury trouble, right? So
Hawks
you
had
got
Yeah.
Hawks had injury
Conley
trouble.
the Jazz.
Bogdan was out for
Who the
like
Hawks
30
have?
games.
No, I
Yeah,
mean in
but
the
then we talk about
playoffs.
playoffs.
Like just right now, like if you look at every single team, you got Conley, you got Ibaka, you got Chris Paul, you had Jamal Murray, you had AD, Embiid, Kyrie, James Harden, and
Yeah.
then I guess like Dante for the Bucks. Like I feel like every team has some sort of major injury
Yeah,
with a key piece. So
I
you just
I mean,
wash it. So
I,
just like no excuses all across the board.
I think it's not maybe no excuses. I think it's just like like I feel like that's the narrative that this playoffs is getting. And like I understand that there's injuries, but there's injuries every single year, and a lot of the times it's the team who has the best injury luck who wins. Like I don't feel like it's anything different than normal years. Sure, there might be a couple more, but also the players that like I said and stuff have a super long injury history. So it's not like this should be anything to like surprise. That's why I had no faith in the Nets going into the playoffs was because of like the injury history and the team not playing together.
mean that was the Nets injury was just a fluke. Harden went up and landed, and his hammy was just pulled. I don't think that's.
Yeah, but that happens.
Yeah, no, it's
What
just
are you
it was
talking
just
about?
I was just saying it's a fluke. Like it wasn't like Harden has this long list of injury. He plays every game for years. Like he's just a top
He
player.
missed like half. He missed like a bunch of time this year with a hamstring injury.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying like it was
Yeah.
a fluke this year. Yeah, no, I'm just saying. I mean, just going back to the Clippers, I think we're hyping up Ibaka a little bit too much. The guy played 22 minutes in 40 games this year. He was like an afterthought to this team because
Oh
they
no, I
wanted.
guess I was just
Also,
saying like I was just listing off people.
Yeah,
that
no,
were
no,
out
but I
this
mean,
year.
like, I'm just getting back to this Clippers argument, like where you're saying you don't trust them, is like they went to 7 games against the team they chose, the Mavericks, and they probably should have lost that series. Kawhi went nuclear, but it's literally like, a one-man Kawhi team, and I know what you're saying about the injuries, but I mean, I do feel like it's more star-studded injuries just like right off the bat. Like it's round 2, like we're 4 games in, but like how many stars did you just list that just went down? Like that's normally not this many stars. Like AD played 2.5 games, and they're LeBron and AD were out for so long in the season. LeBron's never been out that long in a season, other than the bullshit year one when we were tanking.
I guess my point is just that if a player has injury history and they get hurt in the playoffs, it shouldn't be like the excuse train shouldn't be rolling. Then is my point, I guess. Is my bigger point because if you make up a team full of people who have injury history and they get hurt, it's like, well, you knew this coming in.
I actually think I heard something from Skip Bayless and Shannon today that I actually agreed with. And I think Shannon was like, all right, 5 years from now, we gonna look back and just talk about injuries? Or are you're gonna talk about, them winning the championship? And it's like
Yeah,
I kind of see that now. Like you start as time goes on, you forget about the context of the playoffs, or you forget like 10 years from now, let's say hypothetically the Suns win the finals. The talking point of that championship isn't going to be Chris Paul had one arm for 2 games, right? It's going to be like,
Well,
wow, he killed in the Nugget series and then they won the finals. And then you're not going to say, well, you didn't have AD one game. And you're not going to debate having Chris Paul with one arm for 2 games versus not having AD for one game. It's going to be like, you're only going to remember the victory, who they played last, and how well they played in the finals, right? So you're going to start forgetting important
I
context like that as time goes on.
I think I agree, and I also disagree though, because I think it depends on who you say you make it to the finals. We'll get to your team in a minute, and then we'll wrap up this other series. But say you get to the finals and you play the Bucks, and like Giannis goes down game 1. People aren't going to forget that.
Okay,
Yes,
so
in the other rounds,
I
like
guess I'm talking about like the brackets too. Like right now with this thing, like say the Bucks win this series out. Like I think a minute talking point of these playoffs, like 10 years from now, they're not going to think like, oh, well, it was destined to be the Nets championship, right? It's going to be like, well, injuries happen, but the Clippers won the championship. Like you're gonna totally forget that as time goes on about injuries
the
in those
casuals
bracket
will.
rounds.
I'll never
Yeah,
forget.
and that's all that matters, right? Because in the end, if you wanted to write the big book of basketball, you
Yeah,
kind of you forget about those sort of little things as it goes on,
I mean, I don't disagree with you
or it's
guys.
just a talking point, right? Like, say, 20 years from now, Bill Simmons is going to write another book, and he goes, "There was a magical, glorious super team that never achieved it because of injuries." Right? That's not going to be that's not
Lakers.
going to be a chapter. It's going it's going to be a exactly. They could talk about it the same way that they would talk about the 2011 Lakers, right? So it's like it's a paragraph. It's not books. Because they didn't achieve anything. So
yeah.
you kind of forget about these as time goes on. I get that.
All I'm
Maybe I
saying
just
is the
agreed in my
Clippers
own
suck.
moment.
I don't think that, but okay.
All right, we're gonna. So I think. All right, well, let's get back into the series and delve away from the injuries and issues. So we got the series tied up. All the role players always play better at home. We're in Utah. It's like the second mile high city. Jazz. I mean, Mitchell looked. He's definitely not 100%. Do you guys think in the was it tomorrow's game, Jazz are going to come out? I mean, I think Conley's going to play tomorrow, from what it sounds
I
like.
think it's I think it's going to be home team wins, and I think Clippers will win in 7.
Um,
So do you
I don't
trust?
know.
Say it does that. It goes game 7 in Utah. Does playoff P and Kawhi have enough?
Kawhi has enough. Playoff P does not. I have no faith in playoff P. My faith is 110% into Kawhi because it's pretty much what they're doing is it's pretty much like they use Kawhi Leonard as breaking like break in case of emergency, his defense. In the Mav series, he was not guarding Luca. Game and they go down, game 5 on, he guarded Luca, and even though Luca got his numbers, it wasn't even close to as amazing as he was. So I think the same exact thing will happen with Kawhi on Donovan Mitchell.
Were you guys surprised that Kawhi made an all defensive second team?
No.
I was.
I think him and LeBron got their
But I mean,
legacy votes.
LeBron got his legacy votes with the second team All NBA easily. I mean,
to me, it's weird because I don't know how you reward some of this stuff. Like, why did the Sixers
3
get 3 when the Knicks were the second best defensive team? Right?
and-
Like,
or
shouldn't you get you should get a nod by the success your team has, right? Because otherwise it's just narrative based. Because I've watched a lot of Sixers games where they get freaking torched, but on paper they could roll out the best defensive squad in the league.
I
I
mean,
watched it twice against the Suns this year, and the Suns just rolled them. So it was like
look at
I don't.
last night. We'll
I
get
don't-
into that series, but like
I
you
guess
didn't see
defense
them.
bugs me in general. It like it
I
gets
can't believe I'm
rewarded
gonna
just
say
by
this. The in
like,
the indiv the individual does not matter as much as the team.
but it's weird though, right?
Kawhi gets like the legacy, like I'm a defensive stopper.
That's not true. Because if you watch the Clippers, any single time that they need somebody to play amazing defense, they put Kawhi on, and they don't do it all the time because they
rarely
don't
do it.
have to.
I didn't see him doing that a lot.
Okay.
I saw them throwing Paul
But
George on people.
Did you watch the Mavs series? That was a perfect example.
Yeah, they
When
all.
Kawhi guarded Luka, he was horrendous.
But it was only so maybe 2 minutes. But it's not like their defense overall wasn't like amazing defense. They were like a middle of pack defensive team, is what I'm trying to say.
I understand that, but what I'm saying though is you so they're a middle of pack team, but Kawhi on his own is an amazing defender and is worthy of it. So if you take the Knicks for example, there's not the way I think about it is if you take one player off of the Knicks and put them on a different team, would they make that defense better? No, but because of the system that New York plays and with Thibs and everything else and everybody buying into the defense, that's what makes it good. But if you were to take Kawhi and put him on the Hawks would go and have a good defense because of Kawhi.
The Hawks did have a good defense.
Not a good defense. I mean, not like a good overall defense, but they would have one great stopper, is what I'm saying.
You talking smack about Bogdanovic?
Yeah, I am. Fuck him. Fuck the whole Hawks team.
Would you? Okay, so in that same vein of saying, okay, when the time comes, we have an elite defensive player in Kawhi to put on the best player. Would you rather than have the all defensive team votes look at players where their primary role is just playing elite defense all game? Since it's
Oh my
just
God, yes.
individual defense, being like, well, if this is just the Tony Allen Award, we're only going to go after guys like, all right, well, Kawhi played defense elite for the last 2 minutes of every quarter. We're going to only vote for guys that play elite defense 90% of the time they're out there. Like, they may not average a ton of points, but they're the best defenders.
This was my entire argument of why Ben Simmons didn't deserve Defensive Player of the Year, because he's not even the best defender on his own team, because Thibault is a much better defender than he is. That was so yeah, no, I agree with that. If it's going to be Defensive Player of the Year, it should be who cares if they're a star? Because I agree with what you're saying though is that Kawhi is overall, like if you were to take him and Thibault, when shit hits the fan, I'd rather have Kawhi. But overall, I'd rather have Thibault because he's going to play that hard-nosed defense every single minute he's out there.
I guess it comes down to like,
agree with that.
It's kind of like the Jaylen Brown thing right now, where Jaylen Brown's not a good defense. Like he's not on an average night. I guess that's what I was trying to get to is Kawhi in the regular season. Like Kawhi is not. He'll do that in the playoffs. Like I 100% agree. Yeah, he's a great defender. But like on average night throughout the NBA season, he's not gonna play lockdown defense because he's scoring 27 a game. And it's like the same thing that happened with Jaylen Brown. He stopped. He's just scoring. He's focusing on scoring, and he cut back on his defense. They
I have a
just,
question. To solve the all NBA teams, should there be an all offensive team? So you have all defensive, all offensive, and then best overall, right? You have like the all NBA teams is your best teams, and then you have players that you know are like you would probably put some like you'd put Trey Young or something like that in the
Mhm.
all offensive top two teams, right?
Or
Or
someone,
you
yeah,
put Booker in the top offensive top two teams and whoever else, but you wouldn't put them in the all team, like all first,
I,
second, or third teams. I kind of like that idea of
I
adding
guess,
a third category for offensive.
I think I've said something not like similar to that, but like adding another word. I think with that, it feels a little murky. It feels like you should almost do like offensive player of the year because the all NBA team. If you're taking out defensive team, then you should take out just like shouldn't you almost take out all NBA team?
No, because
Because
all
then you would
NBA
have
is
a
for two-way
defensive
players.
team and an offensive team. Because then you're just the offensive team players are probably just going to get the all NBA votes anyways.
That's no, because like Trey, like somebody like Trey Young would
See,
get
that's
like
what I
Trey
don't.
Young's the
Yeah.
perfect example, and like so he doesn't play anymore. This was back in like a couple years ago, but like Isaiah Thomas is like the perfect example of this. He's not somebody who should be on an all NBA team because he's not an all around good NBA player, but he is an amazing what was an amazing all offensive team like player. So players like
Yes.
that.
I think
So here's a good example:
insulting.
Zach LaVine, Zion, Booker, Tatum, Mitchell, like De'Aaron Fox. So there's at least 7 guys in the top 15 points per game that averaged over 25 that weren't going to be an all first team. But because their skill set is more purely offensive, like they're not going to be gifted slots like all defensive team players would be. So you'd be
Mhm.
given these really high volume scorers, really high efficiency scorers, an accolade where the same thing is basically given to defensive players, but that area, I think the defensive team is more murky right now than giving it than anything else.
And if you were to do that, you would change like the all NBA defensive team would have to get changed where it's like we don't care if you're like a household name or you're like if you only play 22 minutes a game say, but you play insanely good defense for that 22 minutes and you average 4 points a game, we don't care.
Mm-hmm.
We're putting you on the all defensive team. So then the all NBA team would be players like Kawhi and LeBron and stuff like that.
So, okay. Would you cut third team then? Or would you still keep all 15 slots?
I think you'd keep all 15, but you just add
Because,
two
so,
rows
okay.
for
So,
all
Kyrie,
offensive.
Paul George, Bradley Beal, LeBron, Chris Paul, Embiid, Damian Lillard, Kawhi, Nikola Jokic, Doncic, Curry, and Antetokounmpo. Wouldn't they all make both of them?
Yeah, I love Ferrell.
So
Every single one of
my
those guys would
thought
probably make.
process is, I guess I would make a counter argument with that. So like with this restructuring, I think you'd have to take out positions over as well. So like, and I think that would solve actually more issues with the all NBA teams because then you can really prioritize centers and bigs towards the defensive teams and you can reward overall players, like an overall top 15 player list in your all NBA teams. So your all NBA teams turn into a tiered list of top 15 players in the league. And then you go into top 10 offensive players, top 10 defensive players. And I think you'd probably get more bigs with all NBA defensive slots. I think you just reward players more that way. There would probably be some overlap like there is now,
Yeah,
but
I just feel like there's like
I don't think there'd be I don't know if there'd be a ton too because you can also go in the top 10 list of scorers and
well, it would also be
there's
like
overlap,
assist and
but
scoring because it'd be all offense. The guys like
Yeah,
it could
exactly.
do that too.
Curry, Giannis would still be up there. Jokic would still be up there. Luka, Kawhi, Dame, Embiid,
Well, like
LeBron,
if players like Giannis are already
Bradley
winning both
Beal.
awards and then they win the third, like that's fine. I think it just opens the door for players like Levine or Zion to
I mean,
get
even
or
like Bradley
Mitchell
Beal,
or Tatum.
I don't think
Beal,
Beal would be on Beal. I don't think would be an All NBA player. He'd be an All Offensive player.
I think that's a good point too. Like I think you could make a point for he was the second best scorer in the league, right? But his team only got in the 8th seed. He's not very good on defense. Like we know the context of that. All right, he's first team offensive player easily. And then you would probably reward the third team slot, like a top 15 player all slot. You would probably put Donovan Mitchell in that third team because his team was the first seed, led the
They
team
had
in
good.
scoring.
They had a good overall defense.
You would
Like they
you'd
had good
probably
team
So
reward.
defense.
you're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah,
just
I think
you're
you could
gonna reward players more for their team success than
exactly. I think that's what all
Yeah.
NBA teams could be, and it would definitely remove even
Well,
Kyrie
that's
this year. I
but
think
it
you'd put Kyrie in all first scoring or all first offensive, and you
but I
Well,
wouldn't
think
that's what
make
there's
Bill.
I think there's already like they're murky about putting an all NBA guy who doesn't make the playoffs. Like a lot of
Well, that's what I
voters.
was gonna say was like Bill Simmons' thing is All Star voting. It's for whoever's the best player, but All NBA, like he has like criteria. One of the criteria is your team has to be in the playoffs.
But yeah, I mean like and then I mean I guess you're already moving it down more with the play-in being a count in as a playoff team. So now you're already making it 10.
Yeah.
I think the only issue would be I just think there would be overlap because most offensive guys are going to be seen as all NBA guys, and most voters are just going to vote for these guys anyways because they don't want to. Like it's probably the thing with the all defensive team. These guys who are watching this aren't watching every team. They're watching like their teams. They get a vote, and then so you'd have to almost make like a committee of like people whose jobs are just to vote on this stuff.
Yeah.
Could I
That
make the argument that it would actually reduce legacy votes? Like it would be because offensive scoring is I think more one of those categories that somebody that's even like a fringe casual journalist that somehow got a vote could just look at the top 20 list and be like, I can just put 10 guys from this list on, right? Like you couldn't
Yeah.
do that if someone was actually having like I'm thinking of someone that probably had like a fake bad defensive year. Or well, who's that guy that didn't vote for Avery Bradley because of the
oh
voting and Avery Bradley didn't even play?
yeah and
Oh,
Like
yeah he's
I know
that
which guy you're talking
yeah
about. Yeah.
I can't think of his
so
name.
you would avoid situations like that because it'd be hard for even somebody that dumb to look at a top 15 scoring list at the end of the year and be like, make a bad choice. You would just like at the worst case scenario, you would just list the top 10 scorers and someone would be like, okay, that's a good list because they were literally the top 10 in scoring, right? So by default, I don't think you could make super bad choices if you were doing the all first team. Like you could defensive, I think you could make some really bad choices like
Yeah,
they have before.
Oh
I
yeah.
I think with a lot of this though, what is happening too is everyone's podcasting, everyone's writing articles, everyone's texting each other. I think they just get into like a almost like a media group and they just kind of push an agenda. They're like, oh yeah, like I think Kawhi Leonard the second defensive like all all defensive second team. I can't even talk right now. And then like you talk to like four other guys and the seeds in the back of their head and they're like, I'm missing a forward right now. It's like, we'll throw this guy in there. Like I heard other people are doing it, so I won't look stupid because all the votes are public. I made that dumb face because someone actually voted Jokic on the second team for All NBA.
Well, that's like
It's the Philly
when
guy.
Tyson Chandler won Defensive Player of the Year, but was on the second team and not the first team.
Or Marcus All
It
didn't
was
make a
Mark.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marcus Hull didn't
Yep.
make the team. That was ridiculous.
So wait, what was your going back to Clippers? Oh, huge sidetrack. So I
Yeah.
think Clippers will win in 7. What do you both think?
I
I
mean,
could see it.
for me, it does depend if Conley's healthy. Like if Conley comes back, I think that's gonna like ease some burden because I don't trust Donovan Mitchell running an offense, and you can already see with like Gobert got in foul trouble and everything last night. If no Conley, it's gonna be like Clippers in 7 or 6.
I see that.
We'll lead into the other Western Conference series that is already over. Suns
Thought we
in
were gonna go into the Suns resting themselves. The Suns versus
Suns
their
in
beds.
4. Suns in 4.
so the Suns sweeping, is that a bad play? Because they're not going to be like, they're going to be fresh, but they'll lose their rhythm that they had going into 6 straight wins. They lost this rhythm now, is what I'm saying, and I think they should have taken it one more game. You know?
Just out of pure, let's get some reps in.
Yeah, Chris Paul just got back for you. His injury that he got, he slept on the bed wrong, more like it.
That's probably the best thing, honestly, this sweep. Like, I was a little concerned about the amount of rest because one of these, teams in the other bracket, aren't going to be able to freaking finish out a series, apparently. So we'll be waiting probably another week to see the Suns play. But I think any rest for Chris Paul right now is the best thing that
I
could
don't want to get warmed up.
possibly happen. I need Chris Paul with a full shoulder, and I'm not gonna
So
stress as much.
all game 7s are on Sunday for the West, or with Philly and Utah series. I mean, you guys went in there, and I thought it was interesting. Chris Paul's first ever sweep.
Yeah, I mean, he's always had to be like the number one dude, basically, except for that Houston run that he had those 2 years.
Which is,
And honestly, he's probably better this year. He was better in that last series than he's ever been. It was his best playoff series ever.
yeah.
My
So
favorite thing that came from the last game when Chris Paul hit that just layup right into the thing, and they were making a huge deal about how Booker set that back screen on McGee. It was just memes like, do you think Harden would set that back screen? I don't think so. Just hundreds, dozens of those.
What was it like?
Yeah.
Chris Paul scored like 10 straight mid-range shots.
Oh my god.
And
He had 16 in the third, and he only
insane.
missed 5 shots for the game, and they were all elbow jumpers except one layup. That's fucking nuts. That is absolutely crazy. But someone was saying it like, if we play the Jazz, it's gonna look a lot similar offensively as when we've just played the Nuggets. But if we play the Clippers, it's gonna look more similar, a little bit more similar, just because of like
I know what you're
the
saying.
centers.
Yeah.
So they like drop coverage. People are talking a lot about drop coverage over switching, just straight up switching. And I don't know how it's going to work against the Clippers because they will just play 4 small forwards and a point guard.
Yeah.
And so they will just instantly switch. There won't be any drop coverage. But with no drop coverage means you just throw it to Ayton. So like they're going to have to, if there's no drop coverage, Ayton gets the pass, someone has to rotate, Ayton passes to the corner. So it's like, I don't know which
those stone hands
to make. Lots got to happen there. But I don't know. I think if we play the Jazz, it's going to look a lot like the Nuggets series, and Chris Paul's going to get a lot of mid-range shots.
Yeah.
I think that's like almost a guarantee with that series.
Well, they're already letting Kawhi have them. They're letting Kawhi eat in the mid-range all day.
I don't know. I'm excited to see how our 4 small forwards have to fight. If it ends up being the Clippers, which I think it probably will be, how they have to defend Paul George and Kawhi, because it's just going to be Bridges on Kawhi all game. Crowder
on PG.
on Paul George. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe Crowder will be on Kawhi. So. I think Bridges is faster, and I think Kawhi plays more of the two.
Kawhi plays more of a body.
I feel like it move up, and then you'll put Booker on Batum, and then you'll have CP3 on Reggie Jackson, and then Ayton's on whoever you have left. You have Marcus Morris guarding Ayton, so it's like good fucking luck with that.
I mean, they list Batum as their center, and it is like when I was writing about it the other day for the player props, I'm like, it makes no sense. Like Gobert should have over 13.5 rebounds, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
I think Gobert's just freaking pathetic. Like,
there's just
how is this possible? Like, I totally understand Ayton not scoring a ton of points in the Nuggets series because his goal was literally to having to guard one of the best offensive big men in like the last 20 years, but
the literal MVP.
Some would say. But what he did against the Lakers I think it's like, all right, so he was perfect. And now he's playing. He would have to play a team like the Clippers that don't have a guy over 6'8". I'm not. Except if they play Zubox, and also like, good luck. I don't know.
Yeah, he's been playing
Ayton
like
just might have a perfect series again. I don't know how you stop Ayton with Batum.
well, I think
just don't
why
know.
well, Gobert got in a lot of foul trouble in the last game. I mean, he 5
How did he do
fouls.
that?
Well, the problem is he's not getting a lot of rebounds because the Clippers were hitting everything. The ball was just dropping every time they went in. 40% from 3, 47% from the field. Like, you were just, it was just like every dagger, dagger, dagger. I mean, it's just, I don't know why you can't lob it into him. He's 7'2". It's because,
I mean, he's 7'2".
you know why?
Like,
You know why? Because they don't have their point guard. Yeah,
he has 6 inches on the next tallest dude out there. It's crazy. And he's probably got 45, 50 pounds on him, too. I don't know why he can't do anything.
I do think with like people who are like Shaq was huge and he was also massive. When these guys are skinnier and they're tall, like you can push their center mass so much more. Like you couldn't push Shaq.
you're just used to watching Anthony Davis.
I am. These guys aren't big though. Like they're not big. So you can like if you're pushing them in the gut and you're backing them up there, like they don't have the mass to push you back like that, and then they're just gonna get fouls anyways. Like they don't set up as well. Like Shaq was massive and would turn and you were dead. You were just done. These guys aren't Shaq.
I mean, like the best example of that is when he dunked over. I can't remember who it was, but he did the one dribble in, and then it pretty much was like a flip switch, and he's like, "I'm just gonna go through this guy," and that's exactly what he did.
And we know Ayton isn't dribbling. Got
Stone
freaking
hands.
cinder blocks for hands. Just smack him off the ground. I can't. He catches like this. Just the 2 cinder blocks in between the ball lands.
Hey man, as long as he's shooting over 80%.
You know what I'm happy about
good.
the Lakers series? We made it so you guys are gonna give Ayton the max, the big boy max too, because we made him look like the best player in the goddamn NBA.
Bro,
They can't do that.
I'm not worried, man. Are you serious? I mean, he had so many less possessions this entire year because of like deferring to Chris Paul and Crowder and other players. Like, I think this situation with the Suns is only going to get better with Chris Paul getting older because players like, yeah, I'm serious, because Ayton
He's like fine
and
wine.
Bridges and Cam Johnson are all going to get more touches as Chris Paul defers more and more and more and more. And like, I mean, Ayton averaged 18 and 12 last year with a block and a half. Like, that can happen next year.
You guys think you're gonna give Chris Paul the Phil Jackson contract where he gets paid $30 million, but he only has to play home games?
Dude, I don't.
He just shows up for 41 games.
Give Chris Paul $100 million. He never has to play again. Be the coach, man. I don't care what he does. We win the chip.
All right. Gun to your head. Jazz or Clippers? Who do you want? Right off the bat, first thought.
I want Jazz. Clippers are winning.
That's how I am too. I'm the same exact way. If I was a Suns fan, and I would want Jazz.
I think I would want the Clippers. I think I'd want the Clippers.
The way I think about it is you have in that series, the Clippers have the best player by far, and this
You meant Devin Booker? I just think
I think you guys George is on the same level as Chris Paul and Booker. Like, I think Booker and Chris Paul are better, but I mean, like, stats wise, Paul George is close.
I think
the Suns are just built better. Like, their roster is constructed better.
Oh, the roster is 100% constructed better because
the only person actually out there that's gonna have a defensive advantage every single night is gonna be Chris Paul, because he's playing Reggie Jackson, and they actually can't put out Rondo or Beverly, and you've seen that in all these Jazz games because neither of them have any offense. And if you just want to run Paul George, 80 times a night, it's just not going to work.
Paul George can't guard guards.
Reggie Jackson. So that's the thing. You have Reggie Jackson guarding Chris Paul like most of the night. It's going to be at least like 20, 25, 28 minutes of Reggie just getting torched.
Did you guys see
And then
Beverly
Rondo's
had?
going to get ejected. It's going to be a whole thing.
Did you see Beverly had 4 blocks in the last
Well,
game?
Crowder at 5. So.
Crowder at 5. All right. Do you? All right. Last question in the series. Who do you think would win a fight, Booker or Jokic?
Jokic, are you kidding me? He's in the mob.
All right.
His brothers were in the stands, but they
I
fucking jumped the.
I was just gonna bring this up. Who would win in a fight, the entire Suns roster or the Jokic brothers?
Jokic brothers.
Jokic brothers would have. They're gonna have brass knuckles. Yeah, they're. Are you kidding me? We would need. So if it was Jokic and his 3 brothers, I think we would need like 5.5 Crowders just to have like a nice like non-clean fight. That's the thing. Like I don't know who else on the team would just fight dirty. We would need at least 2 more Crowders.
No, what you need is you need.
They have giant
Crowder,
strength.
You need Crowder. You need the Morris twins, and then you need oh shit, he's on the Heat.
Haslam?
Nope.
Oh, you're thinking of James Johnson?
Yes.
James Johnson. He's on the Pelicans.
Yeah, he got traded.
Really?
He was in the Mavericks and he got traded in the JJ Redick trade.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play I wouldn't want to fight the Jokic brothers. I mean, 600 years ago, people used to hunt men like that. Like
they were the number one. They were the number one warrior. So they were like in those movies when you go like, and they would come up.
Would fight them for his freedom. That's how terrifying it was.
All right. Now that we got that out of the way, that was the number one. That's just gonna be the podcast title. Who'd win a fight? We're going to the East. Now, Dave calls this man daddy now.
Fuck
Of
him.
his
Fuck
defeat.
you two for that one.
Oh no.
We got the Atlanta Hawks taking on the Sixers. They tied up the series 2-2 last night with a whopping ass kicking of the Sixers in the second half, where Embiid went 0 for 15? He finished the game 4 for 20. Hashtag blaze it.
It was rough, man.
And then he was jacking threes in like with 4 seconds into the shot clock. And I just was like, what are you doing? And he just like looked frustrated. It was a good win.
But you know it's a bad Embiid night is when he is just jacking threes.
Well, did you see the remarks Clint Capella made? He said,
Clint Capella talks a lot.
I like it.
Yeah.
Like
When he
shit.
good defensive center. You know, he could have made an all defensive team without any roster spots. In these new rules, Clint Capella, all NBA first defensive team. He said something along the lines that once you tire Embiid out, he's the easiest player to defend because he gets frustrated and he can't do anything and he doesn't know what to do. And he's not wrong.
But Capella, Embiid, that game when Embiid dropped 40, Capella looked like a fucking like child out there.
At home.
I mean, matched up, Capella does kind of look like that's how big Embiid is. He makes people look so small. But he's not wrong. Like once Embiid misses a handful of shots and he gets tired, like it's kind of over for the whole Sixers because their problem for the history of having Embiid on the roster is they haven't had a goddamn point guard like once.
Ever.
And Simmons is freaking incompetent of anything. So
imagine if Chris Paul was on that team. Oh my god.
Could you imagine if they traded Simmons for Harden?
Yeah.
Or traded him for any.
No, he would have had the injury and they would have been dead.
I just don't know. It's so frustrating because I think Tobias Harris, like this is probably his best year, I think, like statistically, but it's still not enough. You know,
it's a massive overpay.
It's still like 8. You're still paying like 35 mil for 18 and 8, which just isn't enough.
I mean, who would you rather have, like in this series, Tobias Harris, or Bogdanovich? I mean, Harris is probably the better player by a little bit, but I mean,
Would you
But
rather
when
have,
you count it, when you throw in the money in
would you rather
that,
have Harris or CJ McCollum? McCollum.
CJ McCollum.
yeah,
Because
I
then
feel
you could
like
just slide
I've
Ben.
wanted CJ McCollum on the
I think
Sixers for like the past
Ben
3 years.
Ben needs to be the 4.
Ben needs to man the fuck
They
up and do
need
something.
they need to get 3 wings out there who can shoot.
He can't. They didn't actually play him. That's how embarrassing it is. He actually has officially the worst free throws percentage of all time for the amount of free throws he's taken in the playoffs so far.
Not
He's
great.
shooting like 34%. That's
if
terrible. Shaq was better. Shaq was a lot better.
yeah, Shaq was like 50.
Yeah, and that was embarrassing.
Yeah.
He's half.
It's like the Andre Drummond-esque.
He's worse than
if
Shaq.
if you can't, if Embiid is having an off night or whatever, the most important player is Seth Curry.
Is Seth freaking Curry was JJ Redick. They haven't
Yes.
fixed this problem. They just redid the problem with new people. They didn't fix anything. Son of a bitch, trade Simmons.
The thing is
Trying.
Ben Simmons needs to be like the Giannis,
Ooh.
where it's like we are going to put all the shooters around you. We have Brook Lopez, who is technically our center, but he will shoot threes. Go.
They should-
Because that would be sick. If you had Ben Simmons with, I can always forget his name, Washington player, really tall, shoots a lot of threes, super good
Bertans?
percentage. Yes.
Bertans.
A lot.
If you had
Not this
like
year.
Simmons and Bertans as your front courts, and then you had 3 players who were like 35% and higher for threes, that would be a sick team.
Okay, so 2 options are happening right now. Either one, the Sixers aren't trading Ben Simmons out of spite now because everybody is telling them he must be traded. And they're like, no, he's an all defensive player. He can dribble the basketball. We can keep him forever. Or
Got good vision.
they can't freaking trade him because nobody wants him for the value that they're asking. And they're asking way too much.
I think I agree with that statement. I think they're asking way too much.
Because
Or
I think
the Harden thing was probably they wanted Maxey and the picks, and for some reason that was ludicrous.
um I think a smart GM would be like chopping at the bits to get Simmons. Like Toronto's GM, I could see you being like in love with like the idea of building around Simmons.
He loves guys who can't shoot. Just ask Pascal.
Yeah.
Him and Pascal would be a great fit together. We'd just be revamping this, but Embiid can actually kind of shoot. I thought about it. This game last night. I was watching Embiid and I just thought, what if Embiid grew up playing basketball? Not like he picked it up, whatever, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Like, what if he grew up playing basketball?
Yeah.
He could probably shoot better, but his feet because that's like the whole thing is like the players who don't grow up playing basketball and who play soccer instead, their footwork is like insanely good.
Yep.
Light on
So
his
he could
feet.
probably shoot better, but his footwork probably won't be as good.
So we had this, it may have been many drinks in conversation by the fire at the bachelor party. So you're the Blazers right now. And you go, Nurkic's going to leave. CJ's terrible. Not terrible, but his contract's terrible for what he puts up. And Damien's, he's been true to us. We can't build around him. Would you do Lillard for Simmons and some picks if you're the Blazers?
Yes.
I think it would be an embarrassing amount of picks, though. Like that's what I think. Like
It'd be
I think it'd be 3, and it would be like.
I was gonna say 4.
Well, what is Lillard like 31 now? So 32.
That's what I was factoring the age thing. I thought
So
it was
he's
like,
got 3 years left. I think it would be Simmons plus 3 firsts, and I think that would make complete sense if the Blazers just blew it up from there. I mean,
if this happens in like 3 months, I'm taking the credit.
I mean,
honestly, though, I almost think you can't do that. That's where Simmons' trade value's at. Where I think
I think you're just
case scenario.
I think you're under. I think you're under because I think if I was the Blazers, I would look at like I said like what the Bucks did, and Simmons and Giannis aren't like the same offensively, but they play a very similar style
I'll
of
take it a step
basketball.
farther. Look at Houston. They don't even have their
Yeah.
pick this year, and they sucked.
Yeah, they were so bad.
Like
Okay.
they thought they were getting this goal. Like they didn't get anything. They got
I mean, that was
nothing.
like one of the worst trades. Like that might go down worse than the Nets and Celtics trade.
At least in that trade, there were some games they played. This team is
Yeah.
going to be a dumpster fire, and they still have like pick swaps.
Okay, so what about this? There's a team that is absolutely imploding and nobody talks about them because nobody ever talks about them.
If you bring
If
up the
you
Lakers,
traded
I'll slap
Simmons,
you.
if you traded
That's funny.
Simmons to the Pacers,
Oh.
I knew he was gonna say Pacers.
The dumpster fire. I called it.
they are, but they're a dumpster fire with a starting five that is really juicy. Why could you not take maybe two of them plus Jeremy Lamb or two of them plus Doug McDermott for Simmons? So you take Malcolm Brogdon to be your starting point guard now. So you got a point guard. And then you take, I don't think you can take Sabonis.
No.
Take your pick. It's either Turner or TJ Warren.
TJ
And
Warren.
then, okay, so you take TJ Warren.
Bring him back.
And then you take Doug McDermott. You get a stretch four.
You take all three?
Stretch 4-3. Yep, you take all three. The math works out. That actually is a perfect cap trade. You're actually under if you're the Pacers by $1 million.
And that's the only thing the Pacers love in life is being under the cap.
That's very true. Well, why would the Pacers do that though? Because I mean, it's pretty much just taking.
So
they're under the cap.
The 76ers problem and putting it into Indiana where it's Sabonis and Simmons playing together instead of Simmons and Embiid playing together.
I think you're just rebooting because I think at this point you're too stretched. Like they're in that weird spot where their team isn't constructed normally. So like normally you have like three big pieces that takes up 70% of your cap, right? Or 75% of your cap goes to your big three, supposedly, and then you allocate the rest to your role players. But with the Pacers, they decided their starting five is all going to be paid between 15 and 19 million dollars, which doesn't give you any you don't have a ceiling, right? Your ceiling is just mediocre to fifth seed. Like that's kind of the peak of the Pacers right now is there's no potential upside because you're stuck with really good players, but none of them are stars and none of them are superstars. And your best player is honestly probably Sabonis. And you're really hoping for a guy that doesn't have a ton of athleticism in his game to be like Jokic light in the East, which is a very hard ask for a super, super niche role.
Well,
So I think
I feel like their hope is that Karis LeVert will be like Jamal Murray and Sabonis will be like Jokic, and they could have the Nuggets of the East. But both of those players aren't close to the Nuggets players.
I think my problem with my trade is it wouldn't be TJ Warren. I think it would be Miles Turner. And I think the Pacers would have to say, we're going to do Sabonis, we're going to do Simmons right. And they'd put Sabonis at the 5, Simmons at the 4, and say we're going to have our two bigs are our ball handlers. And we're just going to we go.
So then you'd flip Turner to the Celtics finally?
The prophecy completed. But then the rest of your starting 5, say they picked up no one else, but they probably could. You'd have Sabonis at the 5, Simmons at the 4, LeVert at the
3.
You'd have I guess in this case you'd have TJ Warren gone. So you'd still have TJ Warren. You'd have Turner gone. So you'd have
Simmons,
TJ
LeVert.
Warren at the 3, LeVert at the 2, and then
Holiday
screw it.
First.
Holiday or Jeremy Lamb at the 1 supposed spot, but you'd always have Simmons at the 1. I mean, I think you just
shake it up.
I think it'd make the Sixers better.
I guess, but I'll argue why that will never happen. Daryl Morey.
Sixers are spiteful.
No, it's Daryl Morey.
Oh, yeah, because Daryl Morey, like
Two stars pieced
Daryl
together the
Morey
third.
is stars. Yeah.
He'll never trade his best player, or like not his best player, top 2 player, for someone that's not also a star. He would have to flip Simmons for another star.
That's why the Dame thing. I would love Dame on Philly.
Be fun. So Kemba Walker for Simmons, straight up.
Exactly.
Do we want to get into the last series? Do we have anything else we want to bring up with this? We didn't really. I mean, we just keep digressing today.
Well, just quickly, before we go to the next series, who do you think's gonna win?
Hawks.
Are you just saying that to be?
No. I actually think the Hawks are going to win because I don't think Embiid's healthy. I don't think he can play 4 quarters of basketball. I think he's playing on like just watching him. He got fatigued like 16 minutes in the game.
He is really big though, and he does
But that's
not
16.
take care of his body good.
No, but he's done. But he was better this year, up until his injury. But like, yeah, then he did the meniscus in round 1. And yeah, he came back and he looked great. But Capella, yeah, he made him look like a fool. But if they're gonna tire him out and they're just gonna body him and they throw 10 fouls at him and then Embiid's tired in the second half, like the Hawks missed so many threes in that second half. Like this could have been like a 15-point win.
Yeah, but they also take so many threes though.
But yeah, all these were bricks. Like if the next game those like half those go in, you're up 12-15.
Trash. I'm picking the 76ers because my hate for Trae Young burns so deep.
We get it. You guys lost
I think
4 games by 15 points each.
7.
You think Sixers and 7?
I think Sixers and 7 just because it's also an embarrassing outcome for the 76ers. Like having to push it to 7 is pretty bad. It's one of those things that's not going to be remembered. It's not going to be remembered in 5-10 years, but it's still like in the moment, people are going to be like, why the fuck didn't the number 1 seed Sixers with a stacked defensive squad just play through the Hawks?
I mean, I had, when we did our halfway through the season, I had Clippers Sixers in the finals. So I'm going even against my pick because I think this Hawks team could do something like fun and different. And God, could you imagine Bucks, Hawks? It'd be a lot of shooting. It'd be a lot of shooting.
It's going to be Embiid running into Simmons and, I mean, not Simmons.
He's going to probably punch him.
They are going to run into each other.
Let's hit this last series. Bucks versus the Nets. Game 5 is currently happening. Bucks are up 8, which is actually probably their lowest lead of the night. The Nets are clawing back. I keep watching. The Nets are not playing well. They started the game with 15 points in the first quarter. 12? I want to say 12.
15. Right.
Was it 15? It felt like 6. And this is the offensive team. It just looks, they look off. And I mean, it makes sense. Harden just came back. Harden's 1 for 8, 0 for 6. This is like the AD thing where he's definitely not healthy. He's just playing to play. Like he's like, if it's just Durant out there, we're screwed. So I'll give it my best. Durant's got a 20, 14, and 8 right now.
Yeah, Durant's pretty good.
He's doing it all. He's trying everything he can. And I mean, if the Nets cut this to like 5 going to the 4th, I mean, I could see going either way. Just they start hitting some threes, but Blake Griffin's got 17.
Every single thing that I thought about the Nets came to fruition.
So, yes, they had a Harden random layup, lands, and is out.
Not random. The fact that you had 2 players who barely played all year, and then a 3rd player who's coming off a major Achilles.
No, the Kyrie injury was a Giannis stepping in his landing zone injury.
Yeah, but he was hurt like all year though.
But that's different. This is not anything to tie with that. That was Giannis's foot was under Kyrie's foot when he landed, and that's why it twisted. Harden went up for a layup.
I don't think that's like a bad play by Giannis.
No, I'm not.
I also don't think it
Because I
was.
think it's in the paint. I think you can like that's just a thing.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad play, but that was just an injury that happened. It wasn't. It sucks. These things happen. Like the same thing with LeBron. It happened to LeBron in the season. And he got the sprain. I don't think he's gonna play again this series.
It said that I saw something that the Nets were like believing that the Kyrie's out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's. I mean from what I
he's in a
saw, yeah.
boot and on crutches leaving. That's not a sprain that you can just walk off.
No,
Unless he's that dramatic of a human being. He's
he could be.
Kanye of the league.
He could be.
I don't want to be the injury bug person, but he also played 4 games for Duke because he had a broken foot.
Okay, I'll go the other way. Why were the Kyrie Durant Nets kicking the absolute shit out of the full strength Bucks for 3 straight games? In the third game, they blew it. The Nets could have won that game, and they've messed up for some reason. What, Bruce Brown took the last 2 shots of the game, which, and then the Nets.
Interesting choice.
How are the Bucks only up 7? There we go. Here we go. Go with it.
Because Jeff Green is having a stupid game.
Well, the Bucks actually lost like a huge step defensively this year. Like they were good last year, like really good, like elite. They're not elite this year. Like I think it showed up in their win percentage too. Like it's showing up that they dropped a lot of games percentage wise because of the depth they lost. Like Drew is a great asset. You know, PJ Tucker was a great pickup, but like the extent of the depth just isn't showing up. Like Bobby Portis was not a good pickup. You got guys that were not good pickups, and they don't have bench scorers. I guess they're missing Dante too right now, but Dante doesn't make this a 15-point game. You know,
I mean, like Jeff Green's going nuclear, but you have Joe Harris and Harden right now shooting 3 for 18.
But I mean, I just saw that play, and Pat Connaughton somehow let Joe Harris get a wide open layup. It's like, what are you people doing? That's why I want to see them in the finals, because I want the Suns to play the Bucks in the finals.
But that's
if I was a Suns fan, I would be rooting for.
Well, Bucks are the number 1 team. Well, unless we're playing the Hawks, but if we're playing,
that was my argument. I was like, we went into this, and you guys were like, the Bucks big 3 against the Nets big 3. The Bucks have their big 3, and they're not slaughtering. Like they're not. If this was healthy teams, they would. I could conceivably see this be a 4-0 sweep with the way this Bucks team's playing.
It doesn't make sense the amount of bad shots Giannis takes, and it's the significant difference between Simmons and Embiid. Like in Giannis, like Giannis will take shots. He actually will make a handful. He's hit 2 threes tonight.
Yeah, he's playing well tonight.
Simmons won't attempt anything, but like even with Giannis attempting threes, it feels like lightning is struck twice hitting these threes, because they're all bad shots. Like they're really bad shots. Even the mid-range shots are bad shots. He needs to get better, because it's not.
Or
I don't know. The Bucks aren't elite until he can hit a mid-range shot.
Or they go the opposite way. Or they just go the opposite way and he becomes their center. And they go with more of a wing.
Or they need Chris Middleton to actually be a number 2, and Chris Middleton is not a number 2.
I mean,
they're asking too much of Middleton.
I think they need
him
in their wing.
There's nothing wrong with Middleton. I love Middleton as a player.
He's
just not what they want. Like they're asking Middleton to produce as if he's James Harden, you know, like a number 2 championship guy. So it's just too much.
Drew is just playing awesome defense on Harden.
Or even like Clay.
Yeah. Yep.
Like that's kind of what they're asking for Chris Middleton to be, and that's not what Chris Middleton is. Chris Middleton, if somehow like the Bucks were able to get like Clay, for example, where it's a great number 2, and you have Middleton as your 3, That is amazing.
You know
I mean,
what? That might be the additional problem is like watching this game. They're not running plays like they would for Clay. Like
Mm.
we saw Clay drop 60 and he only took 11 dribbles. They're not getting, and it's not like people forget about Clay Thompson. They're not getting Middleton open. They're like asking Middleton to play as if he's an iso ball player.
Yep.
And
Well,
it's
did you
like,
see the
But Clay's also a way
was-
better 3-point shooter than Middleton. I'm just gonna put that in there.
well, yeah, but wouldn't you rather have Middleton be coming off of a screen catch and shoot than him having to take 6 dribbles, back up a guy, and do a fadeaway? Like,
I
I
would
think
I would
they're not
love
running
that.
plays for Middleton is the problem.
Yeah.
They're just
I would
going
love that.
everyone clear out, go mini Kobe.
But Drew's also not Steph Curry. So they're not like Clay gets so much openness because he's playing against next to the greatest shooter of all time.
I was just giving more credit to the Warriors just making like the amount of
Oh yeah,
off-ball
they run
screens being
actual
cut,
plays.
running around. Like I think it's just the lack of Budenholzer or strategizing to making these offensive plays happen.
Well, did you see the whole Rick Carlisle would not like if the Bucks if the Bucks position becomes vacant, he would definitely interview for it.
Really?
Yeah.
That seems weird. I think he knows that Luka's going to be gone in a few years. He's going to get the
Shadow
super
GM.
max, the shadow GM. It's that Bob. That's who they're talking
Yes.
about.
Wait, who's the Shadow GM?
You know the guy who goes on Bill's podcast every once in a while, the gambler, Bob.
Yeah, yeah.
It's him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's supposed
That's
to
the
be
guy.
the shadow GM.
That's
Yep.
he's just a
Oh,
gambling guy
'Cause,
who
like,
like
what Cuban hired him years and years and years ago
Mhm.
because he was able to predict like teams winning at such a high clip.
he's a great
Yeah,
gambler. So
Cuban
they're
hired
like
him.
let's go.
Supposedly the GM. I couldn't imagine even having. How could you have such an ego to like be like, nah, Doncic's not the way we want to go right now. Like
It's just
how could you say that?
oh Dave Tampa's up 3-1.
I know. I'm pumped.
So going back to this game real quick, Harden not healthy. Not healthy.
No, they shouldn't be playing.
Yeah.
No.
Honestly, they shouldn't be playing. An injury will happen because of
I
this kind of run though.
I respect it, and it's the same thing though, like with the Sun series, and we were together, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
I said
We were
before the
all in
game,
the same room, all three of us.
you and I was looking up the upper, I was saying though, before the game, I go, I just feel like AD is gonna play 5 minutes and just go down. And it's like almost on the dot is when he was just like, I can't do this. It's just it's dumb. And like Dave was saying, like these guys are injured and they've been injured this year, and who knows if it's from the turnover from the last. I mean, not for really Kyrie, or Durant, but these guys, just go into next year. Just go into next year full force and say like, let's fucking do this.
Yeah.
Like, you get a full off season. Like no one's gonna blame these guys. Like everyone's gonna be like, the fucking super team. But it's like we're talking about, like they were out and they didn't play together. When they started playing together, they were fucking unstoppable. And like that's the only thing ever gonna stop them right now is the fact that if they can get on the floor together, and if Kyrie wants to play basketball, huh?
If they, I said I would troll them if they mailed it in.
You troll.
That's my hate.
You just hate everyone because
I hate.
I even went into the Knicks series. I'm mad at the Knicks. They made me freaking believe in them, and I should have known better.
Team that lost my bet. I would have won $150 if the Knicks won that series.
And you lost $1.25, Dave. You Venmo him right now.
Oh man.
What was that? That was that one day. Ugh, we were just ripping on you. All right, so 6-point game going into the fourth quarter. If somehow Brooklyn wins this and they go up 3-2, I just don't know what the Bucks. That's just going to be a slap in the face.
Yeah, it would not.
It's just.
Do you think they would do something dramatic right away? Because they kind of, I mean, what they did this offseason wasn't like that dramatic. It was just kind of like what they did. Like it wasn't super dramatic. I feel getting rid of Bledsoe and adding Drew.
But they gave
Do
up all
you
their
think?
draft picks.
Yeah, that is
They gave
true.
like 7 years of draft picks essentially.
Mhm.
So what would you? Or this will be our last topic, and then we'll go to a Betty Bye. What would you do? You can't trade Drew. You just signed him, maxed him. You can't trade Middleton, and you can't trade Giannis.
New coach maybe.
He's
Maybe
he's fired.
Budenholzer's.
He's fired
Yeah,
if they lose this series. There's
yeah,
not a
I
doubt in my
agree.
mind.
So would you do new coach? Maybe Budenholzer is not the answer, and maybe you need a more traditional coach.
I think every team should have Nate McMillan. At this point, the man looks like he's unstoppable. I mean, that's the only thing they could do. They can't financially do anything else because they're tied up with 3 guys who make $40 to $50 million every year.
I think their GM has got to get more creative, and you've got to be able to figure out other markets to get good players. And I can't give many good examples of this, but I feel like the Heat have done this in the past. Like they got Tyler Johnson, out of the
They
G
got
League, who was
Duncan
good for that year.
Robinson.
Yeah, they have
Duncan
to.
Robinson. Like they haven't been able to actually find diamonds in the rough. And I want to list like players like Dante or Pat Connaughton, but I actually don't think that's true because I'm pretty sure Dante was drafted 15th.
They
Pat
drafted them
Connaughton was
both.
in the teens as well. So
Yeah.
like those actually aren't great picks. They're probably like good picks for the exact slot they were taken, but they aren't picks that haven't really ever transcended that. So you need to be able to find like from the barrel. And I hate to bring up the Suns again, but like Cameron Payne, they took him from China to play in the bubble, and he's
I think
on
that was
vet min for this year and next year, just
that was
from
just a
China.
shot in the dark though, because
Shot in
campaign
the
was
dark, got him. But I don't think the
horrible.
Bucks are taking shot in the darks with guys that have like upside potential, like Torrey
Bobby
Craig.
Portis,
We
excuse me.
got from the Bucks. We got Torrey Craig
This is
from
not
the
good.
Bucks for cash management.
Cash management.
Cash management.
Love that guy. He's my favorite player.
Cash considerations.
God, that
came
rum
from the
drink,
Bucks.
huh?
So the Bucks have already screwed up by giving up a guy that has played ridiculous minutes for the Suns in the playoffs already. So they need to be able to use their cash management to use their cash
You've been working
considerations.
too much.
I've been working way too much today, and get actual players, like cheap players. Roll the dice on some guys. They just aren't. It's like they've been throwing away assets, or like they've been locking themselves into places that don't have a ton of upside. I think a coaching change, and I think you need maybe a GM change, honestly. Mallory, get your dad to do something. God damn.
Durant's got 33 and 15, and there's 11 minutes
He's
left
a
in the
good
fourth.
basketball player.
Yeah.
This is
But
the
Pretty
game
good at basketball.
this is the game we needed. We're gonna butt. You had something in the end.
I was gonna say, do you think prime Thunder Kevin Durant would like just end this series though? Like last 2 games wouldn't have happened.
I think that's what he's gonna do right now. I think he's trying to do this. It's a 4-point game.
So he has to drop what, like 47 50 to win this game?
Yeah, probably closer to like 47. 45.
Yeah,
12
45.
12 points in the fourth quarter.
12 points in the last 10 minutes. That's a lot of points though.
I mean, he's easily got this.
Kevin Durant.
But I think this is the statement, like, I am a top 3 basketball player in the league right now. Top 2.
He has to win this game. Oh, Drew. I love Drew.
If someone else on this team, somehow outside of Jeff Green, Blake Griffin, and Durant, can do something, they're gonna win this game. And his name has to be James Harden because he's played 36 minutes and has only made like 1 shot.
Or Joe Harris, who has played 32 minutes and only has 5 points.
He's not having a good series. I'm gonna give Joe Harris that. He's not having a great series. I want to say,
wasn't he the best catch and shoot 3-point shooter this season, or second best?
He was the regular season 47% from 3.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
And in this series, he has put up game 1, he was good. Put up 19 on 7-11 shooting. Game 2, 13 of 5 of 12 shooting. Game 3, 3 points, so 1 of 11. And game 4, he's 3 for 8 with 8 points. So we're going to need a little more out of you, Joe. All right. I think that is going to wrap us up with our second edition of our playoff podcast of the 2021 NBA season. Thank you all for listening. Sorry we went off on a few tangents here and there. The all offensive team is going to be put into the 2022-2023 NBA season along with the
Freaking better.
high school draft. We'll just give more accolades to LeBron at 42. Easy clap.
Wait, what?
LeBron's going to be at 42 by then, you know? He'll still be playing. He's averaging like 30 a game. All NBA first team.
Oh my god.
Go.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna end the podcast. I'm not gonna say anything.
Make sure you're following us on Twitter, Nightcap NBA, on Instagram, NBA Nightcap. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs until we're back next week. See y'all.